All right, moving on, a massive political crack has emerged in Washington, D.C., with 18 Republicans breaking ranks to support fresh aid for Ukraine and tougher sanctions on Russia. Now, this vote, remember, marks one of the clearest signs yet of resistance within Donald Trump's party, even as the future of the legislation remains uncertain. In a rare bipartisan move, the U.S. House of Representatives has approved a major support to Ukraine, delivering a political setback to President Trump's efforts to keep the Congress aligned behind his foreign policy approach. The House passed the Ukraine Support Act by a vote of 226 to 195, and with 18 Republicans joining the Democrats and an independent lawmaker to push the legislation through. The bill had been stalled for months before the lawmakers forced it onto the House floor. The legislation includes more than $1 billion in direct assistance for Ukraine and up to $8 billion in loans. The legislation also aims at a fresh round of sanctions targeting Russian financial institutions, energy interests, and mining operations. The vote comes notably at a moment for Kyiv. Remember, the U.S. military assistance has slowed massively in the recent months, while peace talks between Russia and Ukraine remain deadlocked. The bill, however, faces major hurdles ahead. Republican leaders in the Senate have so far declined to move similar Russia sanctions legislation, saying they're waiting for guidance from President Trump. Even if the measure passes the Senate, it is widely expected to face a presidential veto. Now, the latest development underscores growing divisions within the Republican Party over America's role abroad and signals that support for Ukraine still commands bipartisan backing. All right, let me go across to my colleague Susan Tehrani, joining us live from New York at the moment, getting us more on this. Susan, what's the latest that you're hearing? You know, this is quite a setback that we are seeing within the Republican Party. There are some who still want more and more aid for Kyiv. What are you hearing at the moment? How's this moving forward there in D.C.?
Yeah, it's really one of the first indicators of the crack and disagreement between members of the Republican Party on Capitol Hill with President Trump's agenda. Just yesterday or the day before, they passed the War Powers Act, and that was regarding Iran. And then today we see that, they have agreed to pass this sanctions and aid package, sanctions against Russia and aid to Ukraine, really signaling that politically this is somewhat of a setback for the administration and its foreign policies. Now, as you mentioned, it's very unlikely that it'll pass the Senate, let alone if it does, then go to President's desk. He can veto it. There is some procedures that it can go back into the House and be voted upon if it has enough signatures. But it's hard to imagine that it would get that far. But nonetheless, the political messaging is clear. These are individuals that a lot of them are concerned about their constituents back home and how they're viewing the Trump administration's foreign policy agenda. And they don't want to be caught in the middle. And they're very different. Even many MAGAs, they have very different thoughts about what President Trump is doing. Because remember, a lot of these congressmen and congresswomen, they're isolationists at the end of the day. So, they could be even part of the MAGA camp. It doesn't necessarily mean that they entirely agree with the Democrats.
Mm-hmm. Right. Susan, stay with me. I'm going to tell our viewers another update that's coming from United States, and that is about John Bolton. I'm going to come back to you.